We are here with our July artist, Michael Moore, photojournalist. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your work, how you got started, a little bit about yourself?
Sure. It started as a hobby. I think I was 18 when I got my first 35mm camera, and actually from day one was shooting and processing black and white film from the first roll of film. Just happened to have this opportunity, and I never stopped. I eventually took a couple photo courses. I got my own darkroom set up at home, and it was a hobby. It was a hobby for a number of years. And then by the age, I think, of 25, I thought, well, I want to see if I can make a few dollars on my photography, and I went over to Southbridge News with a portfolio I threw together. And I started picking up assignments. And it didn't take long for me to realize that this is what I want to do, because I really liked photography, but I liked all types of photography, and I thought to be a professional you had to specialize. And once I discovered what photojournalism was all about, I realized you don't specialize, you do everything. Everything you could possibly imagine. You have to photograph as a news photographer. And I thought, that's cool. And I dove into it and did nothing but that for 40 years. And I basically retired from that for almost 4 years ago. But I still consider myself a available photographer, and I shoot a little bit. But I'm not out there pounding the pavement. If someone comes after me, we'll see, So, yeah, so I had a blast. For 40 years, that's all I did. When I was chief photographer at this newspaper in Keene, New Hampshire, the Keene Sentinel, all of these photographs, all of them were taken for that paper, except this photo was the only shot in Southbridge. And there used to be a photography club in Southbridge called PhotoWorks, and I was involved with that. And one time we had a model come to do figure studies for the class, and this is an image I got from that. So this picture's, it goes back over 40 years. This was a nuclear power plant protest at Vermont Yankee in Vernon, Vermont, and the police, the protesters were blocking this gate. And the police were arresting and removing them using this very painful move. They called it the come-along hold. You can tell she's not enjoying it. They hauled her away, and eventually the Vermont ACLU used this photograph on the cover of their annual report and got them to outlaw that particular hold. This was kind of neat, the aurora over Mount Monadnock, because we were on this adjacent small mountain, because we knew they said that there could be aurora this particular night. And we were sitting up there, and it was probably 11:30 at night, and my friend said, he said, look, I think we see a little green over the mountain. And all you could see was green. And he had a digital camera, I had a film camera. So he took a picture and we could see the picture right away, and it showed all this red. And I was like, well, gee, maybe I better take some pictures. So the next morning I processed my film, and sure enough, it looked just like his digital image. And afterwards I learned by going online that they said when photographing the aurora, don't go by what you see. Take a picture because you might see a lot more. Because the camera sees these different wavelengths that we don't see. So that was neat. Yeah, I did a photo essay on this 50-year-old woman who was a rock climber. This is just one of the pictures from that. I am quite certain that the photographers had the best job in any newsroom, because we had so much variety, flexibility, freedom to have our own style and all that, Even at a small newspaper, eventually you see it all. This one I always liked. This was right near the newsroom, and I was just walking along the sidewalk one day, and I looked up, and I had all these interesting shapes of the skyline, including a guy in a bucket. So I just shot that and kind of printed it with high contrast. I like silhouettes. I think they're fun.
Yeah.
So you can see the variety. Here's a couple of kids just looking out the window of a daycare center. To me, it feels a little bit like a Depression era, but it was probably, late 80s, early 90s. This was a lucky shot. I just was cruising around for human interest feature photos, and I went to a public pool, and there's this lifeguard blowing bubbles and twirling a whistle. So it's like, yeah, you have to be patient at times, depending on the subject. But you also have to really be aware of your surroundings and be able to anticipate. and figure out where should I stand, what lens should I use, and sometimes it's got to be pretty quick. But I mean, I've shot everything from, this sort of thing to presidents to murderers in court, you name it. I think looking at good photos is a really good way to learn. Really study the masters, and take courses wherever you can, and you start to develop an understanding of how they did that, where they stand, what kind of lens did they use. And I'm not crazy about equipment. I don't know a lot about all the different brands out there and everything, because to me that's not that important. It's more about what you see and what you put inside that frame. That's really what it comes down to.